Good morning, fathers of daughters. This is Ephraim B. Martin, and I am back for another live stream. Welcome, all fathers of daughters, regardless of your ethnic group and background. Hope that all fathers had a great week. Pray that your children are safe, that they're thriving abundantly, and as fathers, that we continue to handle our business and do what we do. Welcome, fathers. This live stream today, it's going to be a good one. We are going to be talking about social media engineering and the criminal justice system. And this is kind of dear to my heart because I worked in the criminal justice system for 20 years. I'm a former state of Colorado juvenile probation officer, and I've been a certified paralegal since 1984 when I was a United States Marine. That was my job when I was in the Marine Corps. I also worked 10 years in K-12 education as a teacher, restorative justice coordinator, and dean of students. So I've got pretty extensive background in the criminal justice system and K-12 education, working with all kids and their parents from all socioeconomic backgrounds. And one of the things that I learned in the criminal justice system as well as K-12 education is social media engineering is a problem, and the criminal justice system is not the answer. Let me tell you, fathers of daughters, the criminal justice system is not the answer regarding our daughters, our kids, when it comes to social media platforms and all the social media, internet technology that's out there. One of the things, fathers of daughters, what we have to be cognizant of is when our kids are in school, one of the biggest problems in schools, all these kids have phones, right? And they are definitely allowed to have phones. But it becomes a problem because so many of these kids, they just never ever stop using their phones. They never turn their phones off. They use them at home, they use them at school, they use them during class periods, they use them during lunch period. So they pretty much have this 24-hour computer on, testing their brain, working their brain, and feeding their brain. I've got 6 good videos today that I'm going to be sharing with fathers, because what I do here at Grow Dad YouTube channel is I am an educational and informational provider through instruction. All videos that are used are fair use, and I'm a researcher. I'm a legal researcher. I've done it my entire career, my entire life. So fathers, this is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing because I care. I've also written a book called Daddy's Girls, which is available at Amazon.com. You can get that through my YouTube channel. There's a link if you're interested. Why I want to talk about the criminal justice system and social media platforms is because when I was the dean of students, we dealt a lot with a lot of bullying. We dealt a lot with a lot of fighting on campus. And believe it or not, parents, a lot of these fights that start, they're actually scheduled fights through social media. A lot of boys meet up in the parks. A lot of boys meet up on campus because of the trash talk that boys have going back and forth, and even little girls, the trash talk that they have with other little girls that they're having issues with at school. It becomes a criminal justice problem because what happens is when you schedule these fights and these fights are done at school, more than likely there's going to be a summons issued for fighting. Doesn't matter who started the fight. More than likely, both children are going to receive a summons from the SRO, school resource officer, that is assigned to the school. That's just how it works. So whether they're in middle school or high school, that's how it works, fathers. And the criminal justice system, their role in all of this is to punish kids. That's what the criminal justice system does. Yes, the juvenile justice system is about rehabilitation, and that's what it does. But the problem is when you have school issues that become a criminal justice system issue, it's bad because the family is going to be coming out of pocket a lot of economics, a lot of money. Fights at school that end up in the criminal justice system is going to cost the family economics in the form of restitution. It's going to cost the family in the form of anger management classes. It's going to cost the family economics in the form of, more than likely, some of these little girls are going to have to wear an ankle monitor. So they'll have to wear it 24 hours a day. They'll have to sleep with it. They'll have to bathe with it. And it's a cost. And it's a huge cost. And most families, they don't have that extra income to be paying for their child being in the criminal justice system. So that is the extent of the criminal justice system's role when it comes to adjudicating juveniles, placing them on probation a lot of times, or they could be placed on other services that aren't probation. But regardless of what the children are placed on, there's going to be an economic cost. So I just want to warn you, fathers, we do not want our children, we do not want our daughters in the criminal justice system because the fees that are going to be automatically assessed, I'm telling you, they get in a fight at school, they get issued a summons. If they have to go to court and they have to report and they're adjudicated, they're going to minimum get anger management. They're going to be paying restitution. And like I said, depending on the behavior of the child, they could be placed on an ankle monitor, which is very, very expensive. Okay. So fathers, I want to share some videos with you because what I believe is through education, that's what helps all fathers make informed decisions. And always do your own research, fathers. That is very, very important for you to do your own research, okay? The purpose of the videos that I'm sharing with you today is to help all fathers. And that's what Grow Dad YouTube channel does. We want to make sure that when you are here sharing in the, the comment section or however you're going to make yourself known on my YouTube channel as far as participation, I just want to make sure that you have as much information as possible. So that way you can make better informed decisions. Fathers is very critical. I wish when I was raising my daughters that I had someone. And even though I was a probation officer for the majority of my daughters' primary years before I transitioned into becoming a teacher, it was still very, very difficult because seeing how the criminal justice system messed over children, seeing how the criminal justice system messed over families, it was just a very, very difficult situation, to be objective a lot of times. That was my job, was to advocate for these children, was to hold the families accountable. And so many of these kids, they're a mess coming from these families. Some of them don't have any structure. Some of them don't have any discipline. Some of them don't have any consequences. So many of them just don't have boundaries. So many of these parents are friends with their children, which is tragic. That never works out. So this is what I'm doing here at Grow Dad YouTube channel, fathers. I appreciate you. And like I said, I do all the research. And through my book, which is an excellent book, if you purchase it, it'll make a lot more sense. And through my live streams. This is my 28th live stream so far. And if you come to my YouTube channel, you could see I have live streams scheduled all the way out until May the 2nd. And then I've got another 10 to 15 live streams that are going to be coming after that. Okay, fathers? So this is what I do. This is how I get down. And I feel blessed to be in the position that I am, to be able to work with fathers and help all fathers. So, fathers, here's the first video. Let's get into it.
iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
In 2007, Apple released the iPhone. It was the first all-in-one phone, iPad, and internet communicator. It was a game changer. 2011, 35% of adults owned a smartphone. By 2021, it was 85%. Now, 35% of users check it more than 50 times a day. 98% of Gen Z own one, and it's $1 billion market winner. Fine, look, don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful device. I have one, but I keep it off because it has deadly side effects. That's why Silicon Valley CEOs banned their own children from using it. It's addictive. In my office, I see amazing young minds addicted to smartphones, to social media, likes, notifications, the pleasure. They get hungrier and hungrier. Like they're never satisfied, eating eye candy, getting so interested in trivia, trying to get their self-esteem cups filled, trying to get acceptance, but feeling empty inside. That's addiction and dopamine overdose. Look, smartphone and social media combination is such a winner because it's so addictive through dopamine pleasure. Images, catchy sounds, a ding to say that somebody wants my attention, somebody likes me. Images that are mind-blowing. They're really fantastic, but it's just too much, way too much of a good thing. It's addictive in the same way that drugs, gambling, and porn are addictive. Dopamine release in the brain's reward system. This really is selling addiction. Many of us are addicted, and you can tell when you start to complain about having less time, less friends, and being lonelier. Well, where did your time go? Where did your friends go? How did you get to be lonelier when the population's rising and we're more connected? We're being sold a lie here. Internet addiction eats up your time. Likes, news feeds, movies, hit series, and very interesting opinion pieces on current affairs. This all smashes your brain with information, image, entertainment overload. It's a recognized psychological disorder. So as a psychiatrist, here's what I think is going on. This all taps into deep human needs. The need to know, to be accepted, to explore and develop an identity, and even that core need to try to find out what life is all about. People think the answer to that question is actually on the internet. This is what leads to people sleeping with their phones rather than with somebody that they love. People waking up to check their news feeds and likes instead of saying good morning to a human being. It cuts off human connection. People even use toilet time to stay connected. They'd rather race home to surf the net rather than surfing the waves or to play out in the streets. Or they'll diligently practice a video game rather than diligently pass college exams. I've seen it in my work, and it saddens me. It saddens me deeply. Through a 3x empathy area, the anterior cingulate gyrus, shrinks. Now just think about that. A part of your brain shrinks in response to screen addiction. A part of the brain that we have spent tens of thousands of years evolving to help us get along with each other. In a single generation, it's being pruned back because it's just not being used enough. That's devolution, right in front of our MRIs. Less empathy, less ability to engage with people. Screens change our brain chemistry, which changes our feelings. Oxytocin, beta endorphin levels fall because we're spending less time together. We feel bad. Social phobia, anxiety and depression, suicide, they rise because we're spending less time together. We feel bad. To get over this nihilism and loneliness, guess what? We turn to addictions for relief. So, because of dopamine, you feel good for a short time, then you go back to feeling bad. That's addiction. Filling a void where friendship should be. More social media, more screens, less empathy, less people interactions, less friends, more loneliness, more depression, more suicide. The biggest rise in suicide is in 10 to 400% in 5 years. 300%. Why? Because impersonal screen interactions suit female aggression. Males, give them face-to-face physical violence. Females, give them social media, screen anonymity. This suits their relational violence. They single somebody out, exclude them, start rumors, destroy character, destroy reputation. There's a long list of young females who have killed themselves. It's a tragedy. We're making enemies out of people who could be our friends. That's bizarre. It's all part of the brain damage thanks to screen addiction. One study shows that just having a smartphone close by decreases your ability to think and to pay attention. Well, what do you call that? What do you call mental illness? It's all a form of mild, reversible brain damage. Okay, so this information references over 100 separate studies, all pointing in one direction. Smartphones, social media, they're addictive and they contribute to mental illness. There's not a single study showing that the more that you're on social media, the better your mental health. I went to a child and youth mental health conference. It showed a sharp rise in mental illness since 2007. Why? Sure, divorce rates haven't helped, our risk and tolerance society doesn't help, drugs and alcohol continue to be problems, but none of them became suddenly worse in 2007. There are other possibilities. Maybe somebody spilled an anti-brain chemical in the water system. Maybe there was an alien invasion we slept through. Or maybe it's a virus with gain of function being transmitted through screens. Come on, look at the science. Or is this just going to be another inconvenient truth for us to ignore? So where's the hope? What can you do to change any of this? The hope is in you. You can wake up today and take charge. All that it takes is a decision, a sense of purpose, some practice, and some discipline. Here are some suggestions. Okay, firstly, if you're not convinced that you're addicted, try doing it without your smartphone and without any social media for 30 days. Then 8 ideas. Number 1, enjoy parties, have fun. Do and say things that can't be documented. Be spontaneous. Free yourself from the tyranny of all that you do and say now. Number 2, don't touch your smartphone for the first half hour of every day. Then make it an hour. Then no entertainment or social media until you've finished work or school. Then shut down an hour before sleep. Number 3, have a technology-free day once a week. Your brain will actually look for something useful and pleasurable to do. Hiking, friends, you'd be surprised. Number 4, turn off for dinner conversation. Disconnect. Even if you argue over dinner, you're relating to flesh and blood, not silicon and plastic. People are unpredictable. That's how they're supposed to be, and they're a healthy challenge for your brain. Talking, laughing, just being with them releases beta endorphins. Number 5, exercise. Get into nature without the headphones. Look at the world, listen to it. This release calm through. Number 6, because People can do that to someone. It's in your brain. Number 7, people. Prioritize them. Being addicted to family and friends, I've never had to treat it. But all of a sudden, with a smartphone and social media, you've got less time. People or screens, they both give you dopamine, but choose where you get your dopamine from. Number 8, babies away from screens entirely first. That's World Health is going to do that. Well, to do any of this, you want to have a worthwhile purpose. Love, people, friendship, meaning, truth, usefulness, artistic expression. You choose. See, studies are telling us that young people are miserable at the moment. And some young adults are even trying to sue Instagram for stealing away their childhood. Good luck with that. Say no to marketing psychologists. Say no to having the latest phone. Say no to clicking where they want you to go. Don't listen to media mentors. The hope is with you. You can be boss in your own brain. Like a lot of things, a little bit is okay, but a lot is disastrous. That's addiction. Look, even if you do some of the things that I've listed here, even if the science is wrong, and it isn't, you'll be happier and healthier, and you won't have to see a psychologist. Your brain can rewire itself to be mentally fit, or it can continue towards anxiety, depression, and even suicidality. You choose. Choose mental health while you still can.
Okay, fathers. Turn this off. All right, fathers. I believe I had some internet issues, so hopefully the whole thing recorded. The video, I'll be checking it out once I'm done with this live stream to make sure that there weren't any interruption issues, but it appears that I had a glitch going on. You know how technology is. That's what we're dealing with, fathers. So very good video. And I want to share a story with you real quick. April 20th, 1997, Columbine High School. I was a probation officer at the time in Jefferson County, Colorado, at the 1st Judicial District, Jefferson County, Colorado, state juvenile probation officer. And that's the day that Columbine happened, on April 20th, 1997. And I still remember it as vivid today as when it happened with those two kids. I remember how it went down. I remember being in the cafeteria, employee cafeteria, and how it was all unfolding on TV. That Columbine was having a shooting. And I had several kids at Columbine that were on probation. By the grace of God, none of them were murdered that day, but a lot of kids lost their lives. And I remember just being a probation officer at that time and having this mass shooting go down in Jefferson County, Colorado. And it was bad. It was a bad, bad day. And yes, I was a probation officer at the time when Columbine went down April 20th, 1997. And I know a lot of things that came out after that was talking about how these kids got bullied and they didn't feel they were liked at school, and it was um it was bad. It was really, really bad. So I know some of my takeaways from Columbine, being a probation officer, state juvenile probation officer at that time, was I just didn't understand how these kids could get a hold of these weapons and do what they did. And it was because of adults or lack thereof, parental supervision. That's how they got a hold of those weapons. That's how they were able to do what they did. That was a mass shooting. Kids lost their lives that day. So yeah, that's a memory I will always have, because it was a crazy day that day. But fathers, the thing is, when we're talking about our daughters being in the criminal justice system through social media engineering and the criminal justice system, most of the time it's going to happen. If they're at school, it's going to be because of their fighting. It's not going to be because of truancy. Truancy is not an offense to where kids get summons to court. There's a truancy court, but there's a process that kids and families have to go through before they're even recommended to truancy court. They have to miss at least 100+ days of school before they're even recommended to truancy court. And there's a lot of factors that are involved with that. But like I said, when I was a not probation officer, when I was a dean of students, it was crazy just to see the amount of fights that were scheduled on campus through social media. And a lot of these parents, they expected us to do something about it as administrators. And it's always been crazy to me how parents can expect administrators to monitor their children when you got your kids at home with you. They're your children. We handle what we need to handle at school as administrators. If they try to bring any violence to school, we handle it then because of policies and procedures. But to think that we're supposed to monitor your children all day, every day, just because we have them for 6 to 8 hours a day, it's insane to me. And I didn't understand a lot of parents. I really didn't. I've just met so many parents in my lifetime on both sides of the criminal justice system and K-12 education. They didn't want to be parents. They didn't want to be a part of parenting. And it was just crazy. You see these kids in crisis day in and day out, and so many parents are just withdrawn, disengaged, and it didn't make any sense, right? So it was always for me, it was always a challenge because I came from the criminal justice system. I didn't take the traditional route of becoming a teacher and becoming a dean of students. I worked in the criminal justice system first for 20 years before I went into K-12 education. It was a very easy transition for me because once you work in the criminal justice system, that's the back end. Then you go to the front end of K-12 education. It was a lot easier, way easier, because I was able to prevent and be able to speak with a lot of kids about their behavior. And if they didn't straighten up and get it together, what could happen to them in the criminal justice system. So I'm going to, give me a second here, fathers. I'm going to bring up we're going to get another video here together. The next video that we're going to see. What are your thoughts, fathers? I would love to hear your comments. and how you're feeling. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? How are you and your wife, or if you're divorced, or if you're a single parent, how are you going to monitor your child's behaviors through social media? It's pretty tough. It's not always easy because their cell phones are, most kids' cell phones, that's their lifeline. And they will fight hell or high water when parents try to take their social media from them. Trust me. I saw it all the time. And it was crazy to me. It was straight crazy to me to see all the fighting, the infighting that was going on in homes over cell phones. Because kids take personal ownership of their cell phones. It's their property. They feel that way, right? So, fathers, you're going to have to pay attention. You're really going to have to pay attention to what's going on with your kids. Because I'm telling you right now, in the educational system, K-12, middle school, high school, when kids get in fights, when threats are being made, when bullying is going on, it's being done through social media. And that's when it becomes a criminal justice system issue. Because the criminal justice system will deal with it if it has to. It prefers not to, but if it has to, it will. Okay, fathers, let's get into this next video.
I want you to start looking for something. And I promise you, once you start looking for it, you'll never be able to stop seeing it everywhere you go. When's the last time you've walked into a restaurant and saw an entire table of friends on their phone? Or a group of people on the street? Or maybe even your family in the morning, each content to be in their own world, nearly unaware of the reality around them. If the majority of human interaction is nonverbal, what would happen if you removed everything but that small remainder for over a decade? As it turns out, that's the very experiment that we're living in today. I remember when I was growing up, way back in the day, a prehistoric time before everyone had a cell phone and computers were named after the year they were made in. Okay, I'm not quite a dinosaur yet, but I grew up in a unique time where half of my childhood was without the major technology and platforms that seem to rule parts of our lives today, and the other half of my childhood was rapidly slingshotted into the new age of technology. I remember from the earlier half of my childhood, life seemed different, especially human interaction. If you wanted to talk with someone, you had no other option but to physically go out and find them and spend uninterrupted time with them in the same room. And while you were there was nothing pulling your attention away, nothing in the back of your mind reminding you that there are hundreds of other people sharing information that you might be missing out on. That degree of presence, practiced day in and day out, created a different richness to human interaction, with intricacies and nuances that seems to be slowly and gradually lost the further we progress into this new age of technological advancement. And with the meteoric rise in popularity for documentaries like The Social Dilemma, it's safe to say that this is a growing sentiment and realization within today's culture. The terrifying crux to the problem is actually quite simple. There's a massive mismatch between the rate of adaptation and advancement between our biology and technology. Because of the law of accelerating returns, the pace of advancement in information technology is exponential. And while technology continues to grow at a rapid pace, we're left still trying to figure out how it actually impacts us, especially when we're teaching algorithms to predict and modulate our behavior. I don't think that anyone's denying that social media, as well as instant communication, is extremely addictive, and its addiction falls right within the same symptoms as substance abuse. But what we don't quite know yet is how this addiction over time changes not only our behaviors through hacking our positive reinforcement centers of the brain, but how over time it changes our perception of reality itself. When we first embarked upon the social media experiment, we had far more in-person interactions under our belt than we did interactions online. So we took our in-person frame of reference and viewed all of our technological interactions through that lens. But now, in a time when we have hundreds, even thousands of friends, acquaintances, celebrities, and online personalities that we keep up with online, we have slowly over time replaced the majority of our interactions with being digital. How much do we now view our in-person interactions through our new digital lens? As a prominent example, you can look at our growingly polarized political discourse in modern times, and you see that we've already started to see the symptoms of a very binary interpretation of human interaction. It's also worrisome to think that our upcoming generation's digital presence may end up being more important than their in-person presence. So how do we stop all of this from happening? Is the answer to shut it all down, just pull the plug on big tech? I don't think that it is. The truth is, we've opened Pandora's box, and this is the reality that we're now faced with. So what's the path forward? The first step is underway: awareness. Much of classical conditioning, and if you don't know what that is, Pavlov's dogs might ring a bell, is based on the more non-conscious mechanisms of the brain. If you become conscious of how the conditioning is affecting you, it gives you a degree of control over your behavior. Beyond that, it's important to maintain that balance of in-person and digital interaction. You want the lens that you view the world from to be a full 100% of human communication. Body language, emotion, facial expression, nuance, tonality. It's what we were designed to do, and we can't let that practice atrophy, because that's what creates our sense of identity and community that gives us a healthy view of others in the world. If we can maintain that balance, we can begin to have a healthier relationship with our online presence and retain control over the influence these platforms and technologies have on us. These algorithms are based on human behavior and response, and that's something we have control over. Take some small steps today. Maybe start by uninstalling some social media platforms from your phone. Then you have to physically go log into your computer to use it, removing some of the convenience. If you're tied to your phone for work, once the day is done, find some time to spend with your family and friends, and turn your phone completely off for it. Be fully present with the people that you're with. And you just might notice that the world isn't quite as crazy as it seems, and that the life right in front of you is beautiful.
Okay, fathers, that was video number 2. And what's interesting for me as a father of 4 adult daughters, all of my girls are adults, 35, 29, 26, and 23. What's interesting for me is they didn't have to necessarily go through what Gen Alpha girls and Gen Alpha boys are going through. I got 2 millennial daughters and 2 Gen Z daughters. So technology was just getting started. I mean, it wasn't just getting started, it was there, but my youngest daughter, my 23-year-old, she got it the fastest when it came to technology. I believe she got her first cell phone, I want to say, 8th grade, because her and her sister, my 26-year-old, they were just 2 years apart. They were always together. So when she went on to high school, I needed to make sure that I was going to be able to stay in contact with my my baby girl. So, but the social media, it just wasn't. My girls didn't spend time on TikTok, and they weren't on the computer all day. And I kept my girls active. They were doing other things, so their phones were just their means to communicate with their parents and their friends. But it was never an issue. My girls never had an issue with their cell phones at school. I always made sure they put their cell phones in their lockers, not on their person. So my daughters never had issues, but it's a different generation today. And as you can see through these videos and with these videos, there's just so much stuff that Gen Alpha is going through. Gen Alpha was born in 2010. It's 2024. So the older Gen Alpha boys and girls are in high school now. They're 9th graders. And Gen Bravo will start to be born next year in 2025. So yeah, fathers, You're going to millennials, you'll be having older millennial kids because you're millennials yourself. Well, no, you have Gen Z, not millennial. You're going to have older Gen Z children, and you still could potentially have some Gen Alpha kids coming if you decide to make your families bigger, that sort of thing, right? So, yes, the criminal justice system and social media engineering is huge. At every school district in the United States, it's huge. All schools use social media as a means to communicate and to get out information to all kids. So it's not going away, fathers. We just have to figure out a way to be on top of it, because these kids, they're savvy and they know how to block parents and through apps. And I mean, every time they come out with an app, you have to deal with the criminal element of the app, because there's always someone working against the parents, and this is what they do full time. Is they're just criminals. So their job is to entice our children and make sure that they keep our children off guard as much as possible, and making sure that parents are not aware of what's going on with their children. Okay, I'm going to get this next video set up, and this next video is very interesting, because what it's going to be talking about is the parents that are suing social media companies.
More than 1,200 families are
They're suing social media companies because of what's happening with their kids on social media. And even though, let's see, let me get here. Even though parents are ultimately responsible for their children, these social media companies, they know exactly what they're doing with young people and the algorithms, and you know that
more than 12.
social media companies know what they're doing. So they should be sued. And it's just a fine line, I believe, between the legal system and, you know, responsibility of our elders and adults who are just looking at profits a lot of the times. So this next video is it's a real good video, fathers. Here we go.
More than 1,200 families are suing social media companies, including TikTok, Snapchat, and Meta. And they say content being promoted on the platforms is negatively impacting their kids' mental health. On 60 Minutes last night, Sharon Alfonsi spoke to one of the families suing after losing their daughter to suicide. They believe content shared on her Instagram is to blame.
You ask yourself, how did she come up with this idea? And then when I did the research, there it was. She saw it on Instagram. It was on her phone.
If that video wasn't sent to her, because she copied it, she wouldn't have had a way of knowing how to do that certain way of hanging yourself.
Nearly a year and a half after England's death, that hanging video was still circulating on Instagram with at least 1,500 views. Tony Roberts says it was taken down in December 2021. The Roberts are suing Meta, the parent company to Instagram.
If they so-called monitor and do things, how could it stay on that site? Because they're part of their policy states they don't allow for self-harm photos, videos, things of that nature. So who's holding them accountable?
So here now to discuss more about these cases against companies is Ryan Baker. He is a partner at Los Angeles-based litigation firm Waymaker LLP. Really glad to see you to talk about this. So people would have known when we talk about the responsibility of social media companies that they are protected by kind of a section of the Communications Decency Act, which basically says providers have some sort of immunity. So these lawsuits are challenging that. What are the current regulations in place for social media companies regarding youth, and how much relies on parental oversight?
Well, so it's certainly a developing field. When you referred to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which is something that the internet industry as a whole and social media companies in particular have always used to insulate themselves against liability. And a lot of people have described that statute as sort of the backbone or the facilitator of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what that says is you, as a provider of a site, you're not treated as a publisher of content that's generated by others. So social media, which is obviously people putting things up for others to see, those websites aren't necessarily responsible for what those other people say. However, you obviously have cases now where people are being harmed by the content. And I think that the shift, so I guess to first answer your question, what is the state of the law? It's in flux. A lot of states are looking at this. The federal government's looking at this. Everybody's looking at this as a crisis. A lot of kids obviously are being harmed by this. I have 4 children myself. I'm very aware, try to be aware of what they're doing online to the extent they are online. But at the end of the day, it's a bit of a frontier, and it's something. These products were not designed for children, and they're causing great harm.
Yeah, the comparison that I always like to give to people is kind of like an old school comparison, but it's like treating the platforms like they're the printing press. You would never think to sue the printing press for whatever books are, it prints. But the difference here is there are algorithms that, that amplify certain types of posts, and those companies are responsible for those algorithms. And so that is the debate. But I want to.
That's exactly right.
Right. And so, but what about also the people who create the content? Is there any legal responsibility or liability for the content creators?
Well, there certainly can be. I mean, you see this obviously in the setting of intellectual property, where if somebody's infringing, let's say on YouTube, a copyright, then that individual or company could be sued in court for that. And so here you obviously have a bit of a different scenario where you may have somebody who's posting harmful content to a particular group, for example, children. Ultimately, is there responsibility there? The trouble really becomes, in the first instance, tracking that person down and finding who the publisher is. And it can be difficult to get information out of the social media companies. And that's also one of the sort of fundamental issues that I know legislatures are also looking at. How do we enable discovery from social media companies and other platforms? But the point that you make, Anne-Marie, is the right one. The algorithms and the things that these social media companies are using to serve the content, to provide information, those are not things that are generated by other users. Those are products that are developed by the companies themselves, and those products can be the basis for liability.
Do you think, and I know this is sort of a developing part of the law, and these lawsuits may shape the future, that it may actually be a little bit of a case-by-case basis? Like if there is something that is put up and then pulled down very quickly, then a platform may be less liable than if, in the case of that we just ran, they had a step-by-step sort of instructions on how to commit suicide that was up a year and a half after someone had already committed suicide.
There's no question that is going to be a factor. You right now, you're sort of in the world of the negligence law, which essentially requires compliance with a duty, fulfilling certain obligations, and there is a reasonableness element to that. So to the extent that somebody, especially on a social media platform, has put something up harmful, if the company has policies in place to find that, detect it, or to be notified of that, and it takes action, I think that'll go a long way towards protecting the companies, which obviously have an interest in providing these platforms for people, and they're used for many good things as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting and changing part of the law. And what we're seeing here is something that we've seen over and over again, is often the law is playing catch up to technology. And whenever they figure this out, I'm sure there will be another sort of type of technology that we'll have to wrangle with as well. Ryan Baker, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. So fathers, Once again, what are your thoughts? Let me tell you what this reminds me of. When we're talking about social media companies, for those of you that are Gen Xers like myself, you remember back in the day when they would put the label on cigarettes, and the label never said that cigarettes would give you cancer, although the companies knew that cigarettes would give people cancer. And then finally, when all the lawsuits came together and they broke the industry, they had to put on the packets that cigarettes cause cancer. I remember as a kid, all those packages, all they ever said was, they never said that you could get cancer from smoking nicotine. It may cause. Well, if you look at the packaging today, it tells you it will cause. But that was through lawsuits. And I think that social media companies are going to find themselves in a similar situation like the tobacco companies. And I believe social media companies are going to be paying out way more money than what the tobacco industry ever paid out, because social media is affecting the world. So this is just not a United States problem or issue. This is a global issue. It's on a global scale. It's worldwide. So that's going to be interesting. And I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on that for years to come, because it's going to come down the pipe. And it's just going to be interesting to see how the United States handles it. I'm curious how other countries are going to handle it once the United States decides to do what they're going to do. So we just need to keep an eye. Gen Xers, let's keep an eye on that and just see. But it reminds me a lot of the tobacco industry and how they misled humans into thinking they wouldn't get cancer from smoking nicotine. Okay. Got this next video. Give me a second here, fathers. This is by an attorney, and she's talking about social media and policy. Not necessarily social media per se, but she's just talking about policy and the criminal justice system. So let me bring that up.
I think if you look at the way the media covers crime, there's a pretty steady drumbeat of criminal justice stories on the local news that doesn't really adjust to what's happening in terms of crime rates. So there's always a huge chunk of any local newscast devoted to crimes. And that's true whether the overall crime rate is rising or falling. And so one thing that does is create an appearance that crime is always on the rise. And if you look at polling of the public does think crime is always on the rise, even when it's falling. So that's one issue. Another issue is that the media likes to highlight certain kinds of crimes in a newscast. So, really the grislier, the better for purposes of TV news. And as a result of that, you have the public thinking about these serious crimes when they're thinking about criminal justice policy overall. They might not be thinking about lower level offenses or the complexities of why someone might commit a crime. They just have some horrific image in their mind that they might have seen on the news or social media. And the other thing we get from media coverage is very racialized. The media tends to cover a lot of interracial crime, even though most crime is intra-racial. And that also ends up feeding into various stereotypes and prejudices among the public when it's thinking about crime policy. And, that too affects then what policies are ultimately adopted. So you end up with a public that's very prone to be afraid, and it means you have a public that's more likely to support some very harsh responses to things. But what would be better would be if the media spent more time talking about what works to reduce crime. What would be the right approach if we're seeing crime on the rise, or we're seeing certain kinds of behaviors the public would like to see stopped, to really analyze what works to do that. And that you don't really see a lot of discussion about or coverage of. I think if you look at the way that
So, fathers, I believe let's see, let me get where I am. I believe she's a professor at New York University School of Law. I believe so. And is a former prosecutor and defense attorney. So all the videos are in the description. So it's there. It's only a video that's a couple minutes, but very interesting perspective when she's talking about media. And we know how the media is. Media is dirty. Ain't no way around it. Media is dirty. And the media is about making money and promoting and pushing their agenda. Whether it's mainstream media, whether you got a bunch of YouTubers that are on YouTube that don't know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, but because YouTube allows anybody to create a YouTube channel, here you go. Most of these folks don't have a communications or journalism degree, but here they are presenting their emotions, feelings, and opinions. So it's kind of crazy. This whole social media space is just crazy. Okay, fathers, we got 2 more videos, and then I'm going to end the live stream. Give me a second here. Next videos is they're short videos. They're not real long. Talking more of the same regarding social media and how it's affected our kids, and how parents can protect themselves. Okay, let me see here. Let me see that one. Give me a second, fathers. Okay. That was her, right? Okay. Give me a second, fathers. I'm almost there. Okay. Okay, fathers, here's the next video.
In terms of signs that parents noticed in the past that made them aware of their child's addiction to social media, the biggest hurdle here is that these companies never told the world what they were doing. So most parents wouldn't notice the signs because nobody, including doctors, psychiatrists, nobody realized what was happening. I can tell you in retrospect, sort of what we see now and recognize as the signs of addiction to social media. Initially with many children who either stay up late or they sneak up after their parents go to bed, so that they can use social media. You have kids who can't sleep at night if their phone's not next to them. You have one of the biggest symptoms is when a parent or guardian takes a phone away, the reaction that the kid has. So for most of us growing up, if our parents took away TV, it was a bummer. We certainly didn't like it, whether it was TV, CD player, whatever device we had and enjoyed using. With social media, what we see are parents that try to limit access to that device and their kids lose it. You have kids punching holes in the walls, kids running away in order to use social media, kids engaged in self-harm, the sort of classic symptoms of addiction. You also have parents who will put the device in their bedroom to keep it away from kids, and kids will actually get up at night and sneak into their parents' room to try and take the phone. Just really extreme behavior that you typically wouldn't see. That now, as people are looking at it, we're realizing this is the impact social media is having on these kids. They feel that they need it. they feel that they can't live without it.
Okay, parents, fathers of daughters, what do you think about that video? That's what's going on today. And once again, this is where social media engineering ties into the criminal justice system. Because if you have kids that are going off on their parents, trying to assault their parents, not listening, and doing other things, the criminal justice system will eventually get involved in their life. And then the whole family's got to deal with it. And the fact that these social media companies with the algorithm, they knew exactly what they were doing, dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So that's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. I don't know with a lot of you parents how you're going to deal with it, how you're going to move forward, but you're going to have to figure out a way how to make adjustments. And you're fighting a beast with the social media companies. You are. And you're at a huge disadvantage when it comes to these social media companies because their bottom line is profits. And they know they have an entire industry of children. You know what's crazy? I've worked professionally for 30 years in 2 recession-proof industries, law and education. They're both recession-proof. We found that out during COVID, didn't we? Laws never stopped. Courts never stopped. Everything went to Zoom. Kids resorted to going to Zoom, online teaching. Online learning. So I've worked in 2 of the 2 recession-proof industries for 30 years. Those 2 industries are recession-proof. Doesn't matter what happened. Kids are always going to have to go to school and learn. Folks are always going to be in the criminal justice system. That's what it is. Okay, fathers, we got one more video. And this one is the same woman. She's talking about predators grooming children on social media victims. I think this one's about 4 minutes or so. Make sure I pull it up here. Okay. Get that there.
%of teens named Snapchat, owned by Snap Incorporated, as their #1 preferred social media platform, according to Statista in 2021. The platform boasted over 85 million users in the United States alone as of 2020, and current projections suggest this number will grow to nearly 90 million by 2023. Unfortunately, while Snapchat may be widely popular with youth, its addictive algorithm and inherently harmful features have led to serious mental health problems and suicide among children and teens. Snapchat has a profit model based on how many hours they keep children online. As a result, children are not merely stumbling upon harmful information, but are actually being pointed to it. Snapchat users can post images or videos known as snaps. Snapchat offers users the ability to set time limits on snaps, so they disappear as soon as they are viewed. This creates the illusion that pictures and videos posted on Snapchat are temporary and may encourage teens to share content they otherwise wouldn't, like explicit images or cyberbullying messages. This feature may also encourage sexual predators to actively participate on the platform. A feature called Snap Maps allows users to share and view each other's locations. Theoretically, only friends can see it, but many Snapchat friends are not people teen users know and can be sexual predators or drug dealers. These unique Snapchat features prevent parental monitoring. compel daily use of the platform, and allow users to reveal their location. It's no wonder that parents are filing Snapchat lawsuits accusing the company of failing to warn users about the dangers of its product, defective design, and gender discrimination, among other complaints. The Social Media Victims Law Center works to hold social media companies legally accountable for the harm they inflict on vulnerable users. They have filed several lawsuits against Snapchat on behalf of families whose children were targeted and harmed by the platform's algorithmic discrimination, which recommends and promotes inappropriate content to young people based on their gender and race. Meta Platforms, the owners of Instagram, have also been named in these lawsuits. In the case of Rodriguez versus Meta Platforms Incorporated and Snap Incorporated, Selena Rodriguez became addicted to Snapchat and Instagram at the age of 9. By the time she reached 11, Selena had become sleep deprived from constant checking of notifications at all hours of the day. She regularly interacted with men and sent them explicit selfies, which were then publicly shared and resulted in bullying at school. Selena developed eating disorders, low self-esteem, and severe depression. Despite multiple psychiatric hospitalizations, outpatient therapy, and her mother's attempts to remove access to social media, Selena's addiction to the platform ultimately led to her suicide on July 21st, 2021. In the case of Doffing versus Meta Platforms Incorporated and Snap Incorporated, Brittany Doffing and her minor daughter MK are suing Meta and Snap Inc. for negative impacts on MK's mental health. In March 2020, on her 14th birthday, MK received her first phone compatible with social media apps. She immediately installed Instagram and Snapchat. Within 2 weeks, she was addicted. She became sleep deprived, and her performance at school suffered drastically. MK received sexually explicit communications from adult male sexual predators and became obsessed with her body image, resulting in an eating disorder. Her mother intervened by confiscating her daughter's phone, which only resulted in MK running away so she could access social media some other way. MK was hospitalized twice as a result of psychiatric episodes related to her addiction. In the case of Hefner versus Meta Platforms Incorporated and Snap Incorporated, middle school student Liam Birchfield, who once enjoyed playing his guitar and planned to join the United States Air Force after high school, tragically became addicted to Snapchat and Instagram. He was soon staying up until the early morning hours every night, scrolling through endless feeds and communicating with strangers. He also viewed material that included information about firearms. By age 17, Liam had become depressed, experienced suicidal thoughts, and engaged in self-harm, which led directly to his suicide by gunshot on July 6, 2021. In the case of Dolly versus Meta Platforms Incorporated and Snap Incorporated, Christopher James, CJ Dolly, was an active honor student, athlete, and outdoorsman who began using Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat around the age of 15. He started exchanging explicit photographs and shortly became obsessed with his body image. He suffered from being sleep deprived as he communicated on social media throughout the day and night. Although CJ showed no outward signs of depression or mental injury, on January 4th, 2015, at the age of 17, CJ fatally shot himself, only leaving behind a suicide note to assure his parents it was not their fault. Snapchat is also being examined by the Federal Bureau of Investigation as multiple teens and young adults have died after buying prescription drugs laced with fentanyl from drug dealers they connected with through the app. It's clear that Snapchat points young users towards harmful content and uses features that decrease parents' ability to monitor their children's activities on the platform while making it easier for predators to find them. This, along with the platform's other inherently harmful features, makes Snapchat unsafe for kids. If you believe that Snapchat has harmed your child or teen, contact the Social Media Victims Law Center to learn how we can help. Reach out to our team now for a free confidential case evaluation.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. These social media companies and the platforms they use, they know what they're doing, parents. And some of you parents may find yourselves in a class action lawsuit, being a part of a class action lawsuit, going after these social media companies for the harm that they're bringing to your children. And none of this makes any sense. It's about greed. It's about profits, period. That's what these companies are doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And the thing about it is these companies, they don't give a damn about your background. They don't give a damn about which culture you come from. This is global. This is a global reality. So it's going to have to be attacked globally. I think each continent, there's 7 continents. The only continent that doesn't have people living there is the South Pole, Antarctica. All the other continents, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and what am I missing? Australia. Australia. Those are the 7 continents. So 6 of the 7 are going to have to deal with social media companies on a global scale. That's what's going to have to happen to get stuff done, because this is crazy. Let me tell you something. When I do the research on my live streams, and just because I'm a legal researcher, so I research everything, and I just want to make sure that the education and information I'm providing for fathers helps you make an informed decision. And like I said, you can always go back and research yourselves. But myself, I don't consider myself a content creator. I'm an informational and educational provider. That's what I do. I provide educational resources and informational resources through instruction, right? I only spend maximum 5 to 8 hours a week just doing my research, because I have to look at all the videos before I'm going to present them to fathers. But my phone, because I'm a fitness and wellness trainer, I have it on me all the time, but I'm never on social media. I'm never on social media, and my days are just too busy to be doing. I check my emails, I check text messages from my daughters, family and friends when they come in, but I rarely make phone calls. And I've never been the type of individual to be sucked in to social media platforms. I haven't. So that's what we're dealing with, fathers. I appreciate you. I'm glad that for those of you that were able to watch this live stream, if not, the replay video of this live stream will be posted within the next hour. You could check it out and you can see the thumbnail. I have live stream thumbnails, and then I have the other thumbnails for the actual videos themselves that are on the replay. So fathers of daughters, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the support. Let's continue to get better fathers. Let's continue to challenge ourselves to become better men, better husbands, better fathers, better parents. We got a lot on our plate, fathers. It's my pleasure to serve you. It's my pleasure to be here with you. And I feel blessed. All right, fathers, until next week's live stream, I'm out. I'll holler at you. Peace.